So this is another question that's a write a program. So this is a fairly tricky one to think about because it's got what we would call a two-dimensional array or a list of lists. It's a list of lists in Python. And you can see that the code they've given to us for the lists is here, image1, it takes the value of, we've got a bracket, then another bracket, and a 0, 0, 0. That's going to represent the idea of three cells here that are all the same. So one row, two rows, three rows in each image. So to access one of those, you need to know that image 1 at 0, 1, for example, will access this one here because 0 is the index for the three inner lists, and then inside that list 1 is the index for this particular one here. So that's how we access the image. So you need to know that when you're doing this. So obviously we've done a bit of code here which we've just copied from here that they've given to us. So obviously if you want to pause and you want to have a go at this now, or if you've already started to have a go at it, that's brilliant. So they've used I and J as counters. So if I was doing it, I'd have used row and column because it makes it feel a bit easier for my brain to work with, but we'll go with what they've done. We've got a Boolean that they've set here, inverse, to be true. So the outcome that we want from this is to output true if the images are inverses of each other, or false if they're not. It sounds quite difficult, but it's not all that difficult because all we're looking for is all of these numbers in image 1 and image 2 to be opposite. So if this number here is 0, this one needs to be 1. So in this case, it should give us false because these two here are 1s. So those two are 1s. So it should give us, doesn't seem to want to let me highlight, here we go. That should give us false for these two particular images, but it says it should work for any image. So we've got some code, we've started off, these are our counters. So the way I decided to do it was that I thought I'd get some variables involved. Image square 1 equals image 1 I j, and that's going to take, initially this is going to be I is 0 and j is 0, so it's going to take 0, 0, it's going to take from image 1 this 0 here. So image square 2 equals image 2 at I j. So that's going to take this one here from image 2. So now I've got two variables. I can do some comparing. So I can say if image square 1 is exact equivalent to image square 2, then inverse will be false. Because if both of them are the same, it means we've come across this situation like this. So they're both the same, so it's going to be false. So we set inverse to being false. We need to make column, or j, it should be column. I wish it was, but it isn't. So j equals j plus 1. Like that. And then I equals I plus 1 in here. So when we need to line these up, that's inside this while loop. This one's inside this while loop. So we've lined those up. And then at the bottom, right across on this side actually, just make sure we've got the line up right. It's not so easy without any lines. So lining up here, print inverse. And that will print out the inverse value, true or false, after everything's run. So after the whole thing has been run, that will print it out. So that print should be lined up on the left-hand side here with that while loop, and it kind of is. So that's our first lineup. That's our second one, and this is if inside here for our third bit of indenting for Python's indenting. So that's all we need to do. We've completed it. It was worth 6 marks, which seems actually not very much to me. I think that's, not all that much, this one, but it was quite tricky to do. But once you understand the principle, it's not so bad. Now, you didn't need to necessarily do this bit. You could have worked directly with, you said if image 1 ij equals image 2 ij. You could have just done that bit of code if you wanted to. This is just me adding my brain bits to it because it makes me think I've grabbed that square, I've grabbed that square, I'll compare them. But you didn't have to do that. You could have done this. When this was in the exam, a lot of people didn't answer this very well because they didn't understand how the lists worked, how the lists of lists worked, or the two-dimensional array. So it'd be useful to have a think about how that works. And you might decide to program that in Python, in REPL maybe, and give it a go. So I've used row and column this time, but it's exactly the same principle as I've just done. So this code here, exactly the same principle. You could put this into REPL or whatever you're using for your Python and test it out. And if you change some of the numbers in the image, test it out, make sure that it actually works. I've changed this one, as you can see, to make it print true, but you can change some of them around, make sure that it works then. So that is another slightly complicated, but you need to keep your wits about you and think about it programming question.